Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country. Eric Cohen and Shane Dale. And boy, I'll tell you what, it's the end of May. It's almost Memorial Day, and there's just so much to talk about. And I kind of have to give an apology, and I'll get to that in a second, as to one of the teams that we're going to talk about that maybe I, at least for one, did not give enough credit to. So we'll get to that. We're going to talk baseball. We're going to talk softball. We're going to talk football. We're going to talk Pac-12 in general. Obviously, basketball recruiting has heated up. We'll talk about that.
You were so worried about that too, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. How's that make me look these days? We have a guy, Rafael Barlowe, is going to come on with us. He's an NBA draft and European player expert, let's say. So he can tell us both about, let's say, Dalen Terry's status, and then the new guy that we got from Estonia, Henri. So Veesaar, I believe his name. Is that right, Shane?
Veesaar. I want to. It's one or the other. I think that the official pronunciation guide, according to the media release, is actually Veesaar.
Veesaar. Okay.
So you might hear both, but it's like we get the pronunciation down, but then like people pronounce it, like even commentators pronounce it the way they want. How many times did people mispronounce Tubelis' name and Crease's name and all that?
Look at Matt Moreno called him Mathurin, and we were like, well, what?
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe one more than way is acceptable, but I think maybe we need to do some sort of quiz later before the season starts. And like, how do you pronounce this guy's name? How do you pronounce this guy's name? Because it's like a walking eye chart, but to us Americans, it's kind of difficult.
We'll bring on like Brian Jeffries, who we haven't had on yet, or Reggie Geary will come on with us, and we'll just have him like, all right, take us through this name. How do you pronounce it?
Well, Jeff Dean too, our guy Jeff, like he's got to pronounce the names dozens of times a game. He's got to get him down.
Didn't even think about that, but Jeff's the one more than anyone that has to get it right.
Yep.
In front of 15,000 people.
That's
all right. Let's get right into it. Big show coming up. Let's get right into buy or sell. Presented by our friends at Ice Shaker.
Ice Shaker.
Mine kind of disappears in my. If you look at the video, there you go.
Mine doesn't. I have a real authentic background with some Wildcat swag behind me.
Yeah, I have the fake background. So a couple of things. So I'm a little late to the party on things. So I'm out playing golf, and we have another water bottle that Ice Shaker has given us. I don't know if you have that one.
Let me go reach for it. I'll be right back.
Yeah. Oh, real far. Yeah. So it took me a while.
I'm back. Here it is. If you're watching, it's let me turn it around.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, this thing is so cool. So it takes me a while to like figure things out, but I was like, all right, I'm gonna put some ice in this thing and take it golfing when it's 98 degrees.
It is an Ice Shaker after all.
The thing was amazing, and it saves the price of buying water bottles or whatever else in the court. I mean, it's legit great. Took me a while to actually figure that out. I think this is the second time I've used it. It's great.
Now, have you put anything hot in it yet? Does it keep things hot too, or no?
I don't drink anything hot, Shane.
It's called an ice shaker, so it'd be kind of weird.
I'm not a coffee guy, so honestly, I'm hyper enough without coffee.
True.
That nobody wants to see that.
Yeah, you'd play some crazy parlays if you ever started drinking coffee.
Oh man, it's already
crazier parlays.
I was gonna say it's already. You don't even want to know sober. Or not, I mean, yeah. Or
uncaffeinated.
Uncaffeinated.
I got you.
Yeah. Okay. So anyways, check out iceshaker.com. Use promo code Wildcat Country, capital W, capital C. Get $5 off these awesome things. Shane and I love them. They are legitimately, we're really glad to have Chris Gronkowski and these guys as a sponsor, and looking forward to have Chris on sometime soon. But yes. All right, let's get into buy or sell. Number one, before we get into it, Shane, I just want to apologize to the women's softball team.
The women's softball team.
Softball team, yes.
You got to stop doing that, dude. There's only one softball team.
I want to apologize to the softball team because we just didn't talk about them. They weren't good during the regular season. They lost like 8 or 9 in a row at one point. They couldn't beat a ranked team. And I pretty much wrote them off. And I was somewhat surprised that they were going to make the tournament. And we brought them up a few times on buy or sell, like, oh, cool, like they should make the tournament. But
we did have Caitlin. We had Caitlin Lowe on before the season started.
Well, we had her on right when she was hired last year.
Right.
I'm a Caitlin fan. You're a Caitlin fan.
Absolutely.
But we just didn't really cover them as we have in like last year, right? Like when we were on last year, we covered them a lot more.
Well, the team struggled a bit. So I'm sorry. Did you have a buy or sell question?
No, I'll get there. Get there. All right. So I just want to apologize for the lack of softball mention. So the first buy or sell question, Shane, is, should they accept my apology? Buy or sell my apology?
I'm just for interest sake, I'll say sell. No, they shouldn't at all. They should stay mad at you and win the whole thing. and make you look even worse. No, seriously though, what have I always said, Eric, about what it takes to get to the College World Series in softball? You have to have a top 10 national pitcher. Well, Arizona didn't have one this season until last weekend, and they actually had two of them. Hannah Bowen and Devin Netz combined to shut out the national number 15 seed twice in their stadium, in the opponent's stadium.
Unbelievable.
If nothing else, Eric, the regionals, the results of the regionals, that goes to show just how far the Pac-12 is ahead of every other conference in softball. 5 of the final 16 teams that are still in it in super regionals this weekend are from the Pac-12, including 3 unseeded teams. And I think the reason many teams were unseeded, including Arizona, is it looks like they were beating up on each other for most of the year. And now, Arizona has to go on the road and beat an SEC team 2 out of 3 times to get back to the College World Series. But guess what? They did that last year too. And they're going to Starkville because they upset Mississippi State, upset the number 2 overall seed, Florida State. It looked like Arizona, it was a foregone conclusion. Arizona was going to have to go play at Florida State, and there's not a chance I would have picked them to win that series. You remember, Eric, you might remember, you picked them. I'll give you some credit here. You picked Arizona to upset Arkansas on the road during their super regionals last year. And I said, no, I think they're done. And
I did not remember that. I did not remember that.
I did.
Yes,
so I'm giving you credit. Trust me.
Thank you.
I wouldn't bring it up if it wasn't true. I believe.
Fair. Okay.
And they went in, and I think they swept Arkansas. They did. It went 2 straight. So you know what? They could do it again. Certainly. They'll definitely need more from their hitters in Starkville beyond Carly Skupin and Sharp Palacios. They both had home runs for the count kind of for all the scoring in both those games. They won 2-0 and 1-0. But if they get a repeat pitching performance, there's no reason they can't get back to Oklahoma City in Caitlin Lowe's first year.
We will make our picks in the final segment, but also remember that, and I think they should sell my apology too. Remember, Arizona and Mississippi State, they play each other in softball now. And then again, in less than 4 months, they face each other in football in Arizona stadiums. Just remember that there's
the Spurrier Bowl.
The Spurrier Bowl, where Steve Senior, or Steve will be there, not Steve Senior, but
he wrote it down when we chatted with him. Go back and listen to our chat with Steve Spurrier. He didn't know, he didn't realize that they were playing each other out in Tucson, so he was writing it down. He probably went and booked his tickets as soon as he was done talking with us.
Well, former Arizona assistant Steve Spurrier Jr. coaches for Mississippi State. Scott Spurrier coaches for Arizona, so that'll be a fun little deal. But anyways, Mississippi State is the enemy of Arizona over the next 4 months. Let's hope that starts this weekend. Yeah. Okay, number 2 in buy or sell. Baseball. We are recording this on Wednesday night, and Shane and I wanted to wait after the sweep at Oregon last weekend. We wanted to wait and see what happened on Wednesday's 9 a.m. game at Scottsdale Stadium. Well, the Wildcats won 8-6 and finally beat the Ducks. Buy or sell, Shane, there is no doubt that Arizona is a tournament team after this win today. Buy or sell that?
No doubt I'm going to sell that. I think they are a tournament team. Teddy Cahill at Baseball America, he does weekly projections on regionals, where teams are going to qualify for regionals. Usually a pretty accurate guy. As of this recording, Wednesday night, Arizona is the 3rd out of 4 teams in what would be his Fayetteville region with Oklahoma, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Southern Illinois. So he has them in, I think, fairly securely. Arizona's not one of his last 4 out. So I think they're in as of now. I would feel a lot better if they won at least one more game. In baseball, they play so many games that one game isn't going to make or break you as much as in basketball, and certainly not football. But I don't think it's a lock that they're in. So I'm going to sell that. If the question is, would you buy or sell? They're going to be in. I will absolutely buy that at this point. I think they'll be in the regionals.
All right. If Arizona had lost this game to Oregon in the Pac-12 tournament, I would have said Arizona would be out.
Be tough.
That baseball would miss. Yeah. After 4 straight to Oregon, I would have said you're out. So to be able to come back, Daniel Susak, 2 home runs today, no Wildcat country curse on him, especially in the Pac-12 tournament. And in the first ever Pac-12 tournament baseball game ever, Arizona finally won. So that was pretty cool to see. They're the answer to a trivia question. So good to see that. Now they go up against, I think, national top 5 team Stanford, which is on Thursday. Yep. You're probably listening to this after this game has been played. I'd be surprised if Arizona won, but I don't think it really matters. I think the Wildcats are in the big dance, baseball's version of the big dance. So I think they're good to go, right? Would you say that?
I would say that they would be. Yeah, certainly if they get a win over Stanford or ASU. I don't think we know who it is as of this recording. Then I think I would feel better about it. But I think they'll be in. I just, you remember those back-to-back years with Jay Johnson when it looked like they probably should be in based on their body of work, and both years they got snubbed. So there are no guarantees in baseball. So not guarantees in any sport really, but I think they'll be in. But would I feel better if they won another game? Yeah, I would.
Okay, number 3. Now we're going to have Rafael Barlowe on here shortly to talk about the basketball team and what some of the players that might be part of it going forward. But Henri Veesaar is now the new commit. It was probably well known for a long period of time, but it was just announced on Wednesday morning officially. Arizona put out a release Wednesday afternoon. He looks to be a scorer from Estonia, pretty darn good player. The buy or sell question is, do you buy that he will be an impact player on next year's Wildcat basketball team? Buy or sell?
Yeah, I'll buy it. I think he's got a big role to fill, especially with Christian Koloko out. He's a different player from Koloko, don't get me wrong. He's a guy who can space the floor, shoot from the outside. He's a great passer as well. Have you seen some of the highlights that Rafael Barlowe actually posted on his Twitter page at Barlowe 500, if I remember right? Go check those out. It's a great highlight reel. Yeah, I think he'll be a big deal. I think between him and Philip Borvikinen, I think that the Veesaar, Henri Veesaar. I think, put it this way, we'll know his name very, very well, I think, after the first 1 or 2 weeks of the regular season. I think he's going to, of the 3 commits they have so far, I think he's going to make the biggest impact in year 1.
Okay, so that's pretty exciting. Here's why I'm not going to buy this one, Shane. I want to see what Arizona does as far as other commits they may get. And I think the Dalen Terry decision, which as of now, we don't know, I think that'll come down early next week. And we'll
How are you feeling about that, by the way?
At the moment, I'm not feeling great about it. I think he goes pro, but we'll ask Rafael what he thinks. Obviously, he was at the scouting combine in Chicago, so he can give us some more insight on that. I don't feel great about it. I think he's gone. And if he's gone, then I think Veesaar will be a player. I think he'll be a guy that can get some big minutes. If not, I think he's more of a role player in year 1. That's what I could be wrong. Hope I'm wrong. But I think with Tubelis, Barlowe, I think he's a guy that'll come off the bench, but I'm not sure I would call him an impact player right away, especially because I think that regardless, Arizona is going to get other players to commit. There's another guy, I can't remember his name. I think he was from Kentucky, opted out of the NBA draft, and he's a guy that's looking to transfer. It's down to Arizona, Washington, or Notre Dame. You've got this kid from Washington State that we brought up last week. We don't know his status. So let's pump the brakes on it in year 1. But I think this is a guy, at least, and we'll talk to Rafael and see what he says. This is a guy that I think in year 2 could have that Ben Mathurin breakout if the hype is real.
Yeah, it's so hard to tell all the times with European players. I feel like sometimes it's a shock to their system how fast the college game is compared to in Europe. But this guy he's played for one of the top clubs in Europe, Real Madrid. And I know people associate the name more with soccer, obviously, but they have a very good basketball program as well. So, and he can shoot from the outside. He's about a 35% 3-point shooter, which isn't great, but not bad, especially for a big guy. Talk about spacing the floor, and he's a good passer too. So I think for all those reasons, he's, maybe he needs to put on a little more bulk. I'm not sure about his defending, which, you're not going to be on the court, especially at the end of the game. You can't play defense for Tommy Lloyd. But I think he's a guy, again, out of the 3 they have so far, I think he's most likely to make an immediate impact.
Okay. Fair enough. I can't argue with that. All right. So number 4, Shane, I'm very sorry in advance. I'm sad for you. Majon Wright, once again, has chosen to leave the University of Arizona.
He'll be back. He always comes back.
I think, Shane, that ship has sailed.
You think he's gone for good this time?
I think he's gone. I mean, you can't transfer and come back 3 times. It's just not happening. So buy or sell, Majon Wright leaving hurts the seemingly stacked wide receiver room with the Wildcats football team.
Yeah, I'll buy it because I was big on him. Certainly there's plenty of depth there with the guys they have coming in and the transfers. Cowing, who was talked up big time by was Adam Gorney a couple of weeks ago. And then of course everyone loves T-Mac, Dorian Singer coming back, and some other guys. So, yeah, and I understand it might have been tough for Majon Wright to see the playing field. There could have been stuff going on behind the scenes, with the coaching staff. I'm not trying to stir the pot. I'm just saying you never know. So, and of course, there's Keon Barnett as well. They might make room for.
So you just named all these good players, and you're telling me it still hurts.
Yeah, because I think he's great. I think he's a guy who could have, the limited sample size. The reason I like him so much is that year we don't want to talk about. Well, the other year we don't want to talk about because last year we don't want to either. But 2020, when they went 0-5, he made some highlight reel catches in an otherwise awful mini season. So it was a shame we didn't get to see him last year, and of course this year, and apparently he's gone. Keeps toying with my heart. Interested to see. Well, we'll have to talk to Chris about what happens with his NIL deal now because he got.
I was just thinking that. By the way, speaking of another guy that transferred, Shane, Grant Gunnell is no longer at Memphis. That's another one that was on the Wildcats 2019-2020 team.
Yeah,
he is now at North Texas. So
wow.
Yeah, that's a rough go for fall from grace for Grant. Good luck to him there. He should have stayed at Arizona. I think he would have been a significant upgrade over what we saw last year at the quarterback position. But that's nonetheless, I'm going to sell this about Majon Wright. Not that Majon's not a great player, because I really think he has a potential to be one. That wide receiver room, though, is stacked.
Yeah, it is.
Cowing, T-Mac, and then Jamari Joyner, who is one of my
favorites
as
well, right?
I mean, and I'm missing, Dorian Singer is one. I mean, that is a really, really good unit. And barring injuries, Majon Wright wasn't going to play much. There were just too many mouths to feed. It was a good decision for him to transfer this time, in my opinion. I don't think it's going to hurt Arizona specifically.
Well, yeah, and I'll say this real quick, Eric, is I think a lot of guys, they're dreaming if they think they're going to get more playing time at other schools, especially Power 5 school. But Majon Wright is the kind of guy who would go maybe not to a Power 5 school, but to a smaller group of 5 school and be the star right away. So in this, it makes more sense for him than it does a lot of guys, in my opinion.
Okay, fair. All right. So our bonus question. So last week, after you and I had recorded the show, the Pac-12 came out with a new championship game format. Basically, the divisions don't matter anymore. It's going to be the 2 best teams in the championship game, regardless of division. Buy or sell. This hurts Arizona's chances of making the Pac-12 championship game in the future. Buy or sell?
I'll sell it. I don't know if it's going to make much of a difference one way or the other. I think there's, first of all, just very basically, I think there's a good chance that the top 2 teams in the conference each year will come from different divisions. One will come from the north.
2 out of 3 years, yes.
Yeah, I would say that. Then you look back, as awful as Arizona's been the last couple of years, you go back over the last 13 seasons, Arizona finished second in the conference twice.
Yeah.
It was the Pac-10 back in 2009, but they finished second. It came in overtime away from winning the conference that year.
Right.
That game against Oregon, we don't want to talk about. What a mini games we don't want to talk about around here. And then, of course, in 2014, they won the South, but they also had the second best conference record in the Pac-12 overall. So Stuart Mandel, the Athletics said, he created this list of teams that don't have a chance anymore. And it's just, it's stuff to get under people's skin. And he succeeded with me because it was ridiculous.
Yes.
So put it this way, if Arizona has another one of its seasons, because they, 93, 98, 09, 14, we have our moments at Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
They're capable of having another one, especially with the recruiting classes that Jed Fish has already put together. He keeps that coaching staff together. Absolutely. They could make a run one year and finish second in the conference and sneak in. I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. I think that if they finish second in the conference in a couple of years, they probably would have finished second or first place in the South as it was.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to sell this, but tentatively, because you look at USC under Lincoln Riley, they should be a powerhouse. I mean, Riley knows how to recruit. He brought in Caleb Williams, who's one of the top quarterbacks in the country from Oklahoma, brought in Jalen Addison, who was the top wide receiver in the country from Pitt last year. I mean, it's going to be an uphill battle, and Arizona hasn't beaten USC since 2012, I believe, when they made T-shirts and put them in the bookstore.
Rich Rod's first year.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember going the next week in the bookstore being like, why do we have T-shirts for beating USC for winning a single
Think
game?
about it this way, Eric. Mm-hmm. So if USC is going to be unbeatable under Lincoln Riley, and they're going to win they would win the South every year under the current or now former format, wouldn't it be more advantageous for Arizona to potentially finish second behind USC? Maybe the North, the North teams cannibalize themselves and say Arizona finishes 7-2 in the conference, USC finishes 8-1. That way Arizona would get in, as opposed to under the 2 division format, Arizona wouldn't get in.
Fair. Okay. I'll give you that. Yes.
Good. You should.
Yes. With that said, the divisions need to be scrapped right away, and they need to fix the future scheduling, because there's no point in having divisions anymore if you're not going to have it, if it's not going to matter for the championship game. So the Pac-12, in my opinion, after this season, literally should go through and say, all right, and they probably will, because I know that the opponents, I believe, have been set for the future. Just scrap that. I mean, do it over. There's no point. Arizona should probably not be playing USC and UCLA every year. I don't know that it's necessarily fair, when they're skipping Oregon State and Stanford just based on geography. My opinion, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's kind of a bad take, but I would like to see the schedule more reformed.
I think geographically, I mean, certainly they're going to play ASU every year. That's not going to change.
Right.
And then, USC and UCLA aren't that far away. Geographically, I think those 3 teams make the most sense, even though I would definitely be okay with not playing USC every year. But Utah and Colorado, I could take or leave them. I think might make
Utah's
sense.
pretty good. I mean, Utah's probably going to be one of the favorites to. I mean, right now, what this year, you got to look at probably USC, Oregon, and Utah as the 3 favorites to make the Pac-12 championship game, right? I mean, I would think of that.
Maybe Washington. Maybe Washington.
Washington was so bad last year, though, Shane. I mean, with a new coach, you just don't know what to expect. But I think I don't have a problem with the change. I have a problem with the division. So I hope those get scrapped right away. All right, let's talk some more basketball with Rafael Barlowe. And then we will talk more football with some other interesting news being released today, which is Wednesday. You're listening to Wildcat Country. Scooby, we sent you an ice shaker. They are a sponsor, courtesy of our buddy Chris Gronkowski. You have it right there.
I love my ice shaker. Fun fact: when I trained with Glenn Gronkowski, everybody, when we were trained together, people thought I was the other Gronk brother. So it's kind of funny. But yes, I love my ice shaker. It is very good. I use it every day. I am a veteran to the ice shaker game, by the way.
What's up, Wildcat Country? Chris Gronkowski here. Use coupon code Wildcat Country at iceshaker.com.
Shane, really good get here to talk everything Arizona basketball, new and maybe coming back and maybe departed players. Rafael Barlowe, who's the director of scouting for NBA Big Board, and he is also the founder of NBA Draft Junkies. Among his many qualifications, is joining us here on Wildcat Country. Glad to have you on the show. And first of all, I'm going to ask you to give us some hopefully good news about Dalen Terry, who I think can be an All-American next year if he returns to Arizona. But it seems like through the tea leaves, that's not looking too good. Reassure me that maybe there's a chance of him coming back.
I wish I knew an answer to tell you. I was actually at the combine and I watched his workout, and it was a pro day. So, these pro days now aren't going to really give you a whole lot. You're just going to see a bunch of athleticism and dunks. You may see some guys shooting some jumpers, but it's definitely in the best interest of the player, not necessarily from the team standpoint. So I was at his pro day. He showcases athleticism. I do think teams liked him based off of course, his size, and he interviewed well, but just his personality was just so infectious. I mean, he was cheering on guys. He was the loudest one in the gym. And I think he really made a good impression based off of, just like his personality. But there was one scout in particular that was not a big fan of him coming out this year. He made the comment that he made a few jumpers at the end of the year and he got hot, but that doesn't mean that he is ready to shoot the NBA 3. And he felt like coming back to school guarantees him to be a lottery pick next year, and he'll prove himself. And he thinks that he's making a mistake by being borderline fringe first round pick, possibly more likely second round pick, and could actually benefit by going to school, getting the NIL money, and then being a lottery pick next year. But that was just the the exact quote I heard from a scout. Maybe not exact, but you get where I'm going.
Got it. Yeah. And it's interesting how NIL could play into this, be able to make a little bit, come back to school and maybe make some bigger money down the road. But
more money. That was his point.
Right.
He would make more money. I mean, he was assuming he could make more money at, a school like Arizona in NIL money than he would if he's a second round pick, because it will be up to his agent to negotiate guaranteed money. And if he ends up being like a two-way, then, you could probably make more money at Arizona.
Brand new world we're living in.
Yep.
Well, what's your personal opinion, Rafael? If you're Dalen Terry, would you chance it and maybe try to go first round this year, or would you come back and maybe try to like that scout said, try to be a lottery pick next year?
Man, that's a tough decision, because I think, at least for me, once my mind is made up, it's kind of made up. So if I were already set on being a pro, then it would be very hard for me to come back. I think he's going to have to weigh the pros and the cons. But to me, the NIL is a game changer. If you are not going to be a first round pick, which I guess even if a team does guarantee you being a first round pick, I mean, that doesn't really mean they have to select you in the first round. They could change their mind or trade. It's somewhat risky, but I think if I were advising him, I would say, man, go back to school. You're going to be possibly first team All-American. I know this is probably what you guys are hoping to hear.
Very selfishly, yes.
Let's say you're going to be first team All-America. You're going to be one of the top guards in the country. And then my example would be Jaden Ivey. I mean, I think Jaden Ivey would have been, maybe mid-first round pick last year. Well, last year's class was so good, but he came back to school, worked on the things that had some scouts concerned, and now I think at the very minimum he's going to be a top 5 pick, and I think that could be Dalen Terry.
Okay, well, let's talk about some of the Arizona's new commits. Tommy Lloyd again going the international route and picking out some fantastic guys from Europe. Most recently, Henri Veesaar. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his name right. Every new recruit is a challenge in that regard, but big man from Estonia. You seem to be as high on him as anyone has been. Why should Wildcat fans be excited about him?
He's like a skilled 7-footer, has a little bit of toughness to his game. And I've kind of feel like I'm early on the Veesaar bandwagon. He actually came on my podcast in 2020. It was during COVID. And I had plenty of time to dig deep into guys that I thought were going to be, possible NBA players down the road. And so at the time, he was probably like 15 or 16. And it was very easy to just get him to come on. That was one of the benefits sometimes of reaching out to the international players. As a person in the American media, if I show interest, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, this is a big deal. Right. So he came on, and I think we talked for about 25 minutes. Great kid. I've talked to him throughout the last couple of years through text. I did not get the opportunity to watch him play live because a couple of the tournaments, one tournament I was supposed to go to got canceled because of COVID. And then he just played this past weekend, and I was planning on going there. But when Germany decided that they weren't going to have the EuroLeague Final Four in Germany, it was moved to Belgrade. That moved the dates up, which happened to be at the same time as the NBA Combine. And I spent this whole season in Europe, and I ended up coming back a month early because my wife is pregnant. So I didn't get a chance to see him play live. Thank you. And so I have, watched a lot of his film. I'm very high on him as just, the skilled 7-footer, can block shots, needs to fill out a little bit. But I think that will happen at Arizona just because even though Real Madrid is like head and shoulders above most programs internationally, there's nothing like, filling out and getting stronger at one of the top universities in the country.
So as far as his upside goes, are we talking a guy that if he stays 2 or 3 years is an All-American type and future NBA player for sure?
I think so. And the way the draft is going now, you don't even have to put up big numbers. If you just show some flashes and block shots and knock down open jumpers, you could be a one and done and only average like 9 points a game. So honestly, it would not surprise me at all if he is a one and done guy. But if he ends up going 2 to 3 years, then I still think he'll eventually find his way in the NBA.
What's your take on Philip Borovikinen? This is another kid that Arizona got from overseas. Not sure you had much of a chance to take a look at him. Another lanky or long guy. It seems like impact player right away, or probably more of a project.
I honestly haven't had a chance to watch him play. He's highly regarded, but he wasn't like one of the guys that everyone was talking about in a sense. So I think he could be like one of these sleepers that the school found that may come out of nowhere. Not exactly similar, but like Jeremy Sohan was, from Baylor. He's probably going to end up being a lottery pick. He's someone that, he was known, but nobody thought he was what he ended up being, possibly been a lottery pick. So you have to trust what Arizona has done as far as with their recruiting and their ability to just find gems. And, but yeah, I think he could surprise some people.
Fairly or unfairly, Rafael, there seems to be an opinion among some basketball fans, not necessarily myself, that European players aren't as tough or aggressive as they need to be at times, at least compared to some of the American players. And, Arizona fans will talk about Azuolas Tubelis' performance during the NCAA tournament. He was great during the regular season and just almost disappeared in the postseason. Is that a fair assessment? Is that a stereotype? How do you see it?
I think it's a little bit of both. It can be a fair assessment. It can be a stereotype. I think sometimes it just depends on where you come from. It's almost like, the way I look at it as someone that has spent a lot of time in Europe is like the United States, right? And so each country is different. Like each state is different. So, a kid from California may have a different reputation than a kid from New York, or a different stereotype. So there are countries where, like Serbia, if you're from Serbia, it's not Western Europe. You may be a little bit tougher than you are if you are from Germany or whatever. So I think there is a divide between Eastern European countries and Western European countries and their players. I think the knock is like French players are kind of soft. But then again, like people thought Dirk was soft, and Dirk Nowitzki was far from soft. Luka is far from soft. And I think when he got to the league, that was one of the questions or concerns. And he obviously has, you guys are in Arizona, so I don't know if you guys are Suns fans, but he's obviously proven that he's far from soft. So on one hand, it is a stereotype, but I don't think you can just judge all of Europe as a whole, just like you can't judge all of the United States as a whole.
Right. And I think that maybe that's some American ignorance there, just being like, oh, Eastern Europe's all big, one big country, when of course that nothing could be further from the truth. Same goes for Western Europe as well. Let me ask you about some of the current foreign players on Arizona's roster. And obviously the majority of the roster is built from them. Kerr Kriisa, who's, point guard who just likes to get under opponent's skin, did a great job of that last season, was hurt before the tournament, which I think was a big deal. Tubelis, obviously, who we talked about. Have you had a chance to see any of those guys? And are you surprised at all, maybe by one or two guys who have really stood out for Arizona so far?
Well, the guy that I was really high on was Barlowe. I was really high on him. I want to say it was 2019, and he played at the under 19s. And I don't remember exactly if they played Team USA, but I put it like this. I thought he was one of the top 5 players in that tournament. And Team USA had Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, Jalen Suggs, Jalen Green, Scotty Barnes was on that team. And he was, I thought at the time, this kid is going to be a number 1 pick whenever he decides to come out. I don't know what happened after that. He was probably like 16 years old when he got to Gonzaga. I think is he even 19 yet? And he's like in his 3rd year. I know he got to school really, really early. And it just doesn't seem like he has developed at the rate that I thought he would. But he's someone that I think could have a breakout year.
Yeah, and they're going to depend on him with a lot more with Koloko gone as well. And he showed flashes of brilliance last season as well. Especially with him and Koloko on the court at the same time.
And he'll be 20 in July, by the way. Just want to
that up. Okay. Yeah, so he's still young. Pretty young for his class. But I guess in his defense, he was behind. I can't think of the kid's name from Gonzaga his first year that was drafted by the 76ers. He was one of the top. He went back to Serbia as one of the top players, and he was behind Timmy one year. Then he's behind Koloko. So he has had to play behind, some of the better players in college basketball. And I think that he could be one of the biggest breakout stars next year.
We're certainly hoping so. Big shoes to fill with Christian Koloko gone. Last question for you, Rafael. We appreciate your time very much. Sort of along the lines of what I asked you earlier, is courting mostly international players. Do you see that as a viable long-term strategy for Tommy Lloyd, who obviously did that at Gonzaga as well? But is that a solid long-term strategy in terms of continuing to be a top powerhouse nationally and possibly eventually winning a national championship?
Definitely. I definitely think it is. I mean, people have jokingly called me Rafael Barlowe because I've spent so much time in Europe and they think I'm a little bit biased.
Yeah.
I do honestly think, and I may get in a little bit of trouble here as stereotyping, but I do think it is a much easier recruiting process than it is in the States. For example, if you recruit a kid in the States, more than likely he has a huge following. It just may come with a little bit of American arrogance to him. While in Europe, you don't see the ball is live. You don't see a lot of the media hyping the players up. So they come in maybe just a little bit easier to manage and to recruit because they haven't been told that they're superstars. They haven't been told that they just haven't been spoiled in a sense. So it's almost like if you recruit a kid from Europe, even if he's one of the top kids, it's almost comparable to finding a kid outside of the top 100, like a sleeper in the States that feels like he has a bunch to prove, like he's trying to prove that he actually belongs. So I do think the mindset is a little bit different, but I mean, not knocking what Arizona's done, but I mean, the guys that they have recently are guys that weren't like these spoiled guys that everybody thought was one and done. So, I mean, I think their development program is good no matter who they get.
Two more questions for you, Rafael.
Yep.
First of all, Ben Mathurin made a good decision, seemingly, to go to the pros. He's going to be a lottery pick. Did Christian Koloko make a bad one in signing with an agent and not having the option to come back to Arizona?
No, man. He shot 16 for 25 from three in the 3-point star drill at the combine. And the NBA didn't officially release those numbers, but I was there and they had the numbers on the big screen. And I think when he shot the ball well, I think out of all the players that participating in the shooting drills at the combine, he finished third.
Yep.
So I think that he made himself a lot of money. I had a chance to briefly interview him and I was asking, was that something that you've always, or not always, but is that something that he had in his game? He just wasn't able to showcase at Arizona, or is it something new? And he mentioned that he feels like it was something that he's had. He just wasn't able to showcase. And he felt that, because centers are kind of getting played off the floor in the NBA playoffs, his shooting allows him to be able to stay on the floor because he feels like he can not only protect the rim, but he has the offensive versatility to where he can play next to any guard and provide floor spacing and knock the open shots. So he believes that he is a rim running vertical lob threat that can also knock down open shots, which makes him, that would be extremely valuable and extremely rare. So I think he definitely helped himself with the way he shot the ball at the combine.
Placing my Christian Koloko first round pick bets as we speak. Last question for you. Where can we find all of your stuff? I had mentioned NBA Big Board, but just tell us where on the internet or beyond that we can read more of your stuff and see more of your videos, etc.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. So it's kind of in I guess multiple places. I started off with my company NBA Draft Junkies, and it was really one of those things where I was trying to cover everybody. That's how I have videos on Henri Veesaar 2 years before he kind of got into the United States' radar. So I was doing a lot of European prospects. So I still have videos up on NBA Draft Junkies, but then I'd say in April, Chad Ford, the legendary writer from ESPN that covered the draft, he had a newsletter. He retired and he put me in charge of the newsletter. So you can find my content there at nbabigboard.com. And then you can find me on Twitter, Barlowe, BARLOWE 500. And, I tweet a lot about the NBA draft. And it used to be I used to just tweet about whatever was on my mind, but now it's more so draft stuff.
Rafael, thanks very much for joining Shane and I. We learned a lot from you. Great info, and we'd love to have you on again down the road.
Anytime. So I think you guys could have 3. Well, I know you're hoping for 2. But you might have 3 guys drafted. And if you want to have me back on after the draft, just reach out and I'll make it happen.
So Rafael gave some great info, but one thing that neither Shane nor I asked him in the interview was about Leonard Miller, who we talked to Travis Graff last week, and he had told us that if Leonard Miller doesn't go to the league, or maybe the G League or whatever it's called, then Arizona probably leads as far as a college team goes for Kentucky. So off air, we asked Rafael, what do you think of Miller? And basically he just said, I don't believe that he's ready for the NBA. And he would be better served playing a year or 2 in college. Now, he didn't know much about his recruitment, but that could be another guy that Arizona could look at, especially if Dalen Terry goes pro. So just another tidbit that we wanted to pass along.
Yeah, well, in my very unbiased opinion, Eric, I think both Dalen Terry and Leonard Miller should come to Arizona next season. I think that would be best for them. I'm thinking about them long term, really. I'm in their best interest. But but also, along the lines of my question about, the stereotype about European players maybe not being as tough, absolutely fair for him to point out. And he's absolutely right that, just because Europe is not its own country, right. There's a lot of different cultures, a lot of different ways of doing things, even among East, I think we tend to think of the Eastern Bloc as one, former Soviet republic, which isn't fair. So I liked his answer there. I think it varies from country to country and even from individual to individual. Honestly, I think a lot of fans blame European players for bringing some like more flopping or complaining to the NBA or college, but certainly that was around even before the influx of European players. But it was interesting, and I was reassured about Tommy Lloyd's longer-term strategy of continuing to find guys not from Europe and from Africa as well. Bringing in Omar Barlowe, transferring from Gonzaga to Arizona. So as far as a long-term strategy, it seems like it's a good one.
Yeah, I think so too. But it will be interesting to see Leonard Miller if he is. I think is he Canadian also, like Ben Matherin too. So will be interesting to see what his decision is. Next week's show should be a very interesting one with the Dalen Terry decision, and possibly if Miller opts not to go in the NBA draft, and maybe if he does not go to the G League, is Arizona able to lure some NIL money to bring him to town? But I think it's too early to say that Arizona is just, as I was reading on message boards today, they're just maybe a Sweet 16 team now. If Dalen Terry comes back, which I don't think is going to happen, but even if not, I think Arizona could make a serious run. They have some pieces that are really good.
Well, isn't it crazy though? Like what Rafael said, because I suggested the week before with Travis Graff that is it possible Arizona could put together some sort of NIL package that would at least tie Dalen Terry over until he goes to the NBA. And Travis Graff said, yeah, it's absolutely possible. And Rafael goes one further and says he might actually make more at Arizona next season than if he was a second round pick. Now I don't know that's going to last beyond this season. It sounds like there might be some changes coming in, probably for the better. But the fact that could make the decision for Dalen Terry, Travis Graff said he'd probably already be gone. He wouldn't keep the option open without NIL. It's insane how much things have changed.
Dalen, please come back if you're listening to Wildcat Country, which
we're thinking about you in your best interest.
Yes,
that's all.
Clearly in our best interest.
We're very selfless like that.
So, football, it was announced that the CBS football schedule came out today, and the first game on CBS, this is the big CBS, now is Arizona at San Diego State at, get it, Shane, 12:30 Arizona time on Saturday, September 3rd. There's just so much to like about that statement. CBS, day game, San Diego, new stadium. Remember the quarterback for San Diego State, Braxton Burmeister, former Arizona commit.
He's still eligible too. It's crazy. How long ago was that? When he was originally committed to Arizona, then flipped at the last minute?
5 years ago.
My goodness.
So he went to Oregon, then he went to Virginia Tech, played over there. Now he's going to start probably for San Diego State. So I want to go to the game. If I don't know what the ticket situation is going to be like, I'm sure it's going to be crazy, but I am going to look for tickets. I'd love to go to that game. But a 12:30 game on CBS for Jed Fish's team, Shane, it probably doesn't get a lot bigger than that for this team.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. It's not a game I expect them to win. Maybe we'll get into that in just a minute, but get a first crack to see what they got. Now, I think back to last year when they opened the season against BYU in Las Vegas.
Yep.
And we all felt pretty good after that game. They put up a fight. It was close. They didn't put up a lot of points. Their defense looked good. We thought, maybe this team could win 3 or 4 games. And then the rest of the season happened. They lost to NAU and the rest is history. So
yep.
With that said, I certainly don't expect to win, but I expect to see some improved play. And it'll be promising if they can keep it close. But yeah, it's nice to see them get a day game. Obviously, if it's a day game in September, it's not in Tucson.
Right.
That's the thing that even you can change the schedules all you want. You can't change the temperature. If you're Arizona or ASU, you're not going to get a day game in September at home. Maybe not for the first day of October as well. But it's nice. They're going to get some national coverage. Hopefully they'll take advantage of it and they'll show how improved this program is.
Now, the big game going head-to-head against Arizona, San Diego State is Oregon and Georgia at the same time. So obviously it will not be the number one, focus at that time. But for Jed Fish's team to get that kind of exposure, and for those Southern California kids, you look at T-Mac and Kean Burnett, who are probably going to play right away, maybe Jacob Manu, to play, in Southern California for game one. I mean, that's really exciting. I'm stoked for them. Now, I know we don't focus on betting here, but I just want to, the line came out from the sports books and it's anywhere between 6 and 6.5 points. So not a full touchdown going towards as San Diego State's favored, but Arizona less than a touchdown favorite, which to me is a little bit surprising. I would have probably put them around a 10-point underdog. If you were to make a prediction today, Shane, you don't need to give me a score. Would you take the 6.5 points for Arizona or give it for San Diego State?
You first of all, you read my mind. I agree. I think if this game were in Tucson again, like it was last year, I think 6.5 would be about right.
No, I think Arizona would win the game if it was in Tucson.
Okay. Well, I think this point spread would be about right. But no, I think San Diego State wins and covers. Now they do have some changes, like including a quarterback, like you mentioned. But the emotion of that game being at home, a new stadium. Now, maybe nerves get to them a little bit, and Arizona's going to go in like, let's spoil their party. Let's take out all our aggression from last year and spoil it and ruin their day. And maybe that goes into it a little bit. But there's so many new pieces to this Arizona team that I think that they're going to be better. First of all, there's no way they could be worse. But I think it's going to take a little while for the pieces to come together. And this first game, almost like last year, they don't really have a preseason game, so to speak. They get thrown right into the fire against a very good team. And I think that's going to be a little too much to overcome. So, Arizona might keep it close for a while, but if I had to bet on it as of now, I would lock in San Diego State and I would pick them to cover the game.
I'm going to take the team that I believe has the best starting quarterback on the field. And I don't think much of Braxton Burmeister. I think Jaden DeLora is more proven, and I think he has the weapons. I think Arizona has a legitimate shot to pull the upset and win this game, and I will take the 6.5 points. I think it is a field goal game either way.
Okay.
It has the makings of a 23-20 type game, one way or the other. But I'll take the team with the points. It's early. We have
we'll revisit this the week of, but it'll be interesting to see how maybe we'll flip by then. Maybe we'll have our minds changed.
I think it's like 99 days from when we're recording this to college football, something like that. It's crazy. We're getting there. We're only 14 weeks away, which is wild. All right. There's still a couple of Wildcat sports teams playing. Good luck to men's golf, who is playing in the national regionals over in Scottsdale at Greyhawk this week. But let's talk about softball, Shane. Let's make a pick on the series in Starkville. Will Arizona make it to Oklahoma City once again? Yes or no?
Well, do I want to be stubborn and pick against them again? Or do I want to flip? You know what? Yeah, I'll take it because I feel like it's tough because their pitching hasn't been very good this year, but they were lights out in Columbia, Missouri.
Yeah.
If they do it again, and I think they're more likely to do it against Mississippi State than they were against Florida State, then so I'll go ahead and go on a small, not a really thin limb, but a limb nonetheless. And I'll pick the Wildcats to get there. It would be tremendous story, wouldn't it? Well, it's crazy to think they're this close as it is.
Unbelievable. I'm sorry. I don't have the faith. I appreciate that you do. I am very happy with winning the first round of the postseason. I mean, you make it to this equivalent of the Sweet 16. The women's basketball team just fell short of that. The men's team got to the Sweet 16. The softball team got to the Sweet 16 as far as I'm concerned. Congratulations to them. I think the run ends this weekend, but I hope I'm wrong. I would be gladly, if you're gloating saying, hey, you were wrong last week, that's great.
Well, and there are two ways to look at it. And by the way, we are flipping our picks from last year at this time.
Yeah.
I picked against them. You picked with them and you were right. Hopefully you're wrong this time.
Yes, I do.
But there are two ways to look at it. Between the Mississippi State and Arizona, Mississippi State easily had the more impressive win. Florida State was a national powerhouse and a College World Series contender. Missouri was on that seeding cusp to even be seeded because only the top 16 teams are seeded. So that's part of it. But again, I come back to the pitching, and if Arizona can repeat that performance, and the other thing is, like I said earlier, the Pac-12, maybe they're just that much better than everyone else. And so now that they're playing non-Pac-12 teams, the very few SEC teams made it to this. Yep. I think it was two out of 13. Mississippi State's one of the two left. So that's something to consider as well. So that's why I'll lean Arizona, even though, I'm a little bit biased, and I'm trying not to repeat my mistake from last year, even though that has very little to do with anything. But I'll go with the Wildcats. Why not?
If Caitlin Lowe can pull this off after a subpar regular season and no home games in the postseason, unbelievable.
Remarkable.
Want to thank Rafael Barlowe for a great interview. Great having him on, and would definitely look forward to bringing him back to talk. I mean, Wildcat basketball, future draft prospects, etc. He's a great source of info. Good discussion, Shane. We have a lot coming up over this Memorial Day weekend, obviously, with Dalen Terry's decision. Will any other transfers come in there? You just don't know. My impatience finally has waned, and I'm excited to see what is next. So for all of you out there, have a safe Memorial Day weekend. For Shane Dale, I'm Eric Cohen. Thanks for listening. And as always, bear down.